I preached this message at junior high camp, and it was just under an hour, so that was for them. You guys are a little older, can endure a little more punishment than that, so. What time's the lights out, Danny? Like 10 o'clock? I'll just go to 10 o'clock. All right. That gives us about an hour and 50 minutes. I want to tell you guys about a story that I read in the news, that was in the news about a year ago. It was about a guy named Jose Salvador Alvarenga. Jose Salvador Alvarenga was a fisherman in a small village in Chiapas, Mexico. It's on one of the most southernmost states of Mexico, and it was right on the coast, on the Pacific coast. And he's a fisherman in a small village, and he was kind of a heavy-set dude. And it's only a little bit important to the story. And he and this younger guy, late teens, early 20s, set out to go fishing one day in this boat, about a 22-foot boat. And they got out of the harbor, they got in the sea, and their engines failed all of a sudden. So this is Mexico. In the United States, something like that happens. You just breaker, we send the Coast Guard, and somebody comes and gets you. In Mexico, it's sort of like, well, fend for yourself. So their engines went out, and then all of a sudden the wind started to kick up, and a storm started to kick up, and so this hurricane basically came in. So they looked for like 2 days for these guys and did not find them. And then they gave up. They just said, the weather's too bad. It's too risky for us to go look for him. 13 months later, this guy, Jose, washed up on the shore of the southernmost Marshallese Islands. It's an atoll, so they have hundreds of little tiny islands. He washed it up on the southernmost island. About 10 people live there. If you go ahead and see a picture there, it'll show his route of where he came from. All the way from there in Mexico, all the way across the Pacific Ocean, into this little island. He said he saw the island, he freaked out, he swam to the shore, he fell asleep. The next morning, about 15 hours later, he woke up and he started walking down the beach. All he has at this point is this shredded pair of underwear on, and he looks like a man who's been at sea for 13 months. And this, like I said, this village has like 10 people that live there, and this woman sees him and just starts freaking out, And this guy got found, basically had been in the ocean for 13 months. He said that the young guy who was with him died about a month in because he was unwilling to eat seabirds to stay alive, and so just raw seabirds. They didn't have anything, and he said he was able to catch some turtles along the way and drink turtle blood to stay alive, to have something to drink and catch rainwater and stuff. So here's what I want you to think about. I want you to think about where you were 1 year and 1 month ago. Okay, just in your mind, go back 1 year, 1 month ago. You're probably about Future Quest time, like right in that Future Quest from a year ago. And then I want you to imagine spending every day from that day to today on a 20-foot boat, no covering, and with nothing but the ocean to look at. Can you imagine how crazy that is? Like, what a crazy story this guy has. When he washed ashore, he was super skinny, like emaciated, like he had been fat. They call him like Gordo is what his fishing name was, but his fishing buddies. And this guy just like survived for 13 months in the open ocean, just drifting. And it's pretty crazy to think about how big the ocean really is. I don't know if you've ever experienced that before. We went to beach camping in Carlsbad, me, my wife, and my 2 kids, about last month, and we're down at the beach. There's kind of if you're at Carlsbad, there's this long walkway to go down the beach, and so I went down there with my 2 kids. My wife was about to come down and meet us, and so I'm playing with my daughter under our little umbrella there, and my son is playing catching sand crabs in the ocean. He's 3 years old. This is like his first time at the beach. He doesn't know what he's doing, and so the tide is coming in, and he's facing me, looking for sand crabs in the sand. And you know how like sometimes like one extra big wave will just come in like a lot further than all the other waves that come in? Well, I see this wave out there that is like coming and is much bigger than all the other waves. And it's coming from my son. My son's facing away from the ocean. He doesn't see it, and he's just playing with sand crabs. And so I like just get up and start running towards him. I get there about 2 seconds after the wave. My son's like toppling over and over, about to get sucked out to sea. And I just thought, oh my gosh, like going to the beach with little kids is seriously like just panic attack. It's not fun at all. Like, there's nothing fun about it. You just, the entire time, you're like, don't drown. How am I going to make sure? Don't get eaten by a shark, you know? Don't eat sand is like another big problem at the beach. And so it's just like, I just remember thinking like, oh my gosh, my son literally could have gotten sucked out into the ocean, like sucked out in the sea, and it just would have been over for him. But later on, I was out there swimming, and I was by myself. My wife was with the kids up on the shore, and I kind of got caught in like a very weak rip current. And I just kind of had one of those moments where like, I just thought like, I could die out here. And the ocean doesn't care, right? Like, the ocean doesn't care that I have a wife and 2 kids and, you know, I'm a youth pastor of like hundreds of kids. Like, the ocean doesn't care. The ocean just be all, suck you under, we'll kill you. And then the next day, it's just like, oh, who cares, right? I don't know if you've ever felt like that before. You ever been in the ocean where you just felt like, this is something scary happening right now? Like, literally, the ocean does not care about me. It would kill me, no problem. It could kill me in like 50 different ways. It could pick me up and drop me on my head and break my neck. It could like just suck me under. It could have one of its weird animals come bite me and chew me up. Like the ocean doesn't care about you. The ocean is mean. The ocean is a scary place. There's so many dangerous, bad things about the ocean. If you've ever been where you feel like, I might drown right now, you know. I don't know if you're maybe just not a strong swimmer or you're caught in a rip current or just something happens where you get dropped on your head by a wave and you don't know which direction is up and you're just like, dude, I might die out here. Then you have some idea of what I'm talking about on how scary really the ocean can be. And the Bible actually uses the ocean as a metaphor for life, and you can imagine some of the reasons why, because the ocean is unpredictable. The ocean is scary. And life can be some of the same things. Life can be really unpredictable. As a matter of fact, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You don't know what your future holds. You don't know, you might think you know, but you probably don't know who you're going to marry. You don't know how you're going to die. You don't know when you're going to die. How many of you guys think every once in a while about like, I hope I don't get cancer and die? And then you start thinking like, do I have cancer right now? And I just don't know about it? You know what I mean? Like, John was telling me about a kid up at camp that was like, woke up, I probably shouldn't tell the story, but he said he woke up at 2:30 in the morning. Johnny Yua, 2 days ago, said he woke up at 2:30 in the morning, the kid is hovering over his face. And John's like, what? And he's like crying. And he's like, John, I think I have a brain tumor. And John's like, what? Like, why? He's like, does cancer run in your family, or you know anybody like? And he's like, no, I just think I do, right? So one of the things is like we have a lot of anxieties about what's going on. You know, one of the scary things about the ocean, when you're out there in the ocean and you're like, what's going on down here? I don't know, right? I know the great white sharks exist. I know that bad things are down here. I don't know if they're close to me. I don't know if they see me. I don't know if they think I'm a seal right now. Like, I don't know what's going on. And life can be the same kind of way. Life can carry some of those same kind of scary things that what is going on? Because you don't have all the facts. You don't have all the information. And so life can be pretty scary as it is. And so the Bible uses this idea of the ocean as sort of a metaphor for life. And some of the uncertainty, some of the scariness, some of the feelings we have about the power of the ocean, where the ocean's really strong. But the Bible gives us kind of 2 specific things in the New Testament that I want to talk about tonight. 2 things that will make your experience in life or in the ocean of life much more difficult, okay? These are 2 things that if you have these 2 things, it's like being adrift. It's like that guy Jose being adrift in the ocean, just at the mercy of the ocean. And here's the first thing. It's in Ephesians 4:13 and 14. Go ahead and put that on the screen. I'm just going to actually read just verse 14. It says, as a result, we are no longer to be children tossed here and there by waves and carried about by every wind of doctrine, by the trickery of men, by craftiness and deceitful scheming. So it says that when you are like a child, and if you look up in the verse before, it says that the unity of Christ, that God has given us pastors, teachers, evangelists, apostles, prophets, to help us become mature. But when we're immature, we're like children tossed here and there by the waves and carried about. And then it says by what? And this is an important thing to pick up on. It says, by the trickery of men, by craftiness and deceitful scheming. Look, I don't know what experience you've had in life, but if you haven't figured out already that there are people in this world that want to ruin your life, if you haven't figured that out already, you'd be wise to figure that out ASAP. Because there are people in this world that want to trick you, they want to deceive you, they want to lead you astray, they want to lead you down a wrong path, and they want to destroy your life. And it says that the thing that causes people to get led that direction is immaturity. Immaturity will cause you to be adrift in the open ocean. Immaturity will cause you to be thrown about, tossed to and fro by the waves. Now, immaturity is interesting. I'm talking about my son, Wilson. He's immature. He's 3 years old. And one of the things I have to tell my son, one of the things you have to tell kids when they're little is hey, don't take candy from strangers, right? Now, you don't have to tell me not to take candy from strangers. If some guy's like, hey, Mike, I got some candy in my van. Come check it out, right? You'd be like, no. No, thank you, right? That's not something you have to teach me. I'm a mature dude. I've got that figured out. Wilson VanMeter, on the other hand, be like, you got candy in the van? Awesome. Let's get in, right? I mean, Wilson needs to be taught, like, no. Because he's immature. Because he hasn't figured out yet that there are people that want to do him harm in this world. And so one of the things about being immature, when you're immature, all you can see is what's right in front of you. All you can see is what is immediately gratifying to you, what right away is going to satisfy you. And so when you're immature, you are at the mercy of people that come alongside you and take advantage of you. What are those two foxes in Pinocchio? Those two dirtbags that are like, hey, we'll sell you to Stromboli. You guys are lame, dude. Watch a movie or something. Shh. You guys are terrible. Shh. Immaturity causes you to be adrift in life. Immaturity is one of the things that's going to cause you to get thrown all around. Now, the second thing that's going to cause you to get thrown, I told you I had two. The second thing is doubting and double-mindedness. Look at James 1, 5 through 8. It says, but if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all generously and without reproach, and it will be given to him. But he must ask in faith without any doubting. For the one who doubts is like the surf of the sea, driven and tossed by the wind. For the man ought not to expect that he will receive anything from the Lord, being a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways. What it says here is that when you doubt, you are like the surf of the sea, driven and tossed by the wind. You're just blown about in your life when you doubt. Now, for most of us to hear that scripture, that's actually kind of a scary thing, because most of us, if we're honest with ourselves, we've experienced some level of doubt in our life. Matter of fact, almost all of us have experienced kind of a lot of doubt. And so you read that verse and you think, oh, man, like that's scary. But we find out a little more what specific kind of doubt it's talking about later on in verse 8. It says, being a double-minded man, he's unstable in all the way. So it's not just doubt. It's doubting like this. It's doubting like the kind of person that goes to church on Sunday, hears a message, gets all excited, gets goosebumps, feels really good about the Lord. The next day gets invited to a party and with his friends, and he goes there and he gets drunk and smokes weed and sleeps with his girlfriend. And then the next Sunday comes around, he hears a good message, he gets excited, I'm going to follow Jesus, and the next day goes out and does exactly what he did the Monday before. You see, double-mindedness causes you to be unstable in all your ways. If you're a double-minded person, you should have no expectation that God is going to move in your life. As a matter of fact, you should expect, what the Bible teaches, you should expect is that you're going to experience some turmoil, you're going to experience some suffering, you're going to experience some pain in your life. don't know if you guys have experienced, I think probably all of us have experienced this feeling of double-mindedness, where we want one thing, but we also want another thing. Around one set of friends, we act one way, but around a different set of friends, we act a different way. At school, we act one way. At church, we act the other way, right? That's double-mindedness. And you shouldn't expect much from the Lord. God's really clear. You can't have him and whatever other kind of worldly life you want. Look, Jesus wants you. But he doesn't want you so much that he'll take second place. As a matter of fact, that makes no sense. It makes absolutely zero sense that Jesus would take second place in your life. Jesus will not be anything other than your Lord. He will not be anything other than God. It's contradictory to even consider that it would be something else. It doesn't make any sense. It's like trying to put on a pair of pants, but only putting one leg in and walking around, going to school, right? It's not working. All the parts that are supposed to be covered are not covered. It's messed up. It's just going to trip you up. That's not how pants were meant to work. The way pants need to work is with both legs in. The way that God works is all in. The only way that God works is when he's your Lord, when you serve him. And yet all the time you see Christians that are trying to live life like with one leg in their pants. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't make any sense. You're going to be unstable in all of your ways. But we all know what it is to want two different things. I remember I was at church camp in 6th grade, and I went with my friend Jason, and we were like 6th graders at camp, like just trying as hard as possible to look cool, So, yeah, this camp's pretty cool, I guess. And then my friend Jason's all, dude, look at that girl across the room. And I was like, which girl? And he's like, that girl with the dark hair. He's like, I'm in love with that girl. And then I was like, which girl? And I was like, oh, I'm in love with that girl too. But I didn't say it to him. And so he goes, bro, go ask that girl if she'll go out with me. So I'm in a bad spot now. My friend Jason just asked me to go ask the girl that I'm in love with to go out with him. So I'm a good 6th grade wingman. I walk across the room. I'm like, oh, what's up, girl? I was like, what's your name? She's like, Margaret. I'm like, that's cool. I'm like, you want to go out with me? Now, I walked across the room to ask her out for my friend Jason. But what came out of my mouth was, do you want to go out with me? Now, Margaret's not dumb. So she says yes, right? So I'm like, cool. I'm like, all right. Well, I'll see you in a little bit. So I go back across the room. I go back to my friend Jason. I'm like, Jason, bro, I got some good news and I got some bad news. I was like, the good news is me and Margaret are going out. I think you can figure out the bad news, Now, what I, in my little 6th grade brain, was thinking that my friend Jason was going to be like happy for me, He was not. He was not happy for me. As a matter of fact, he was like, what? He's like, what are you talking about, bro? I was like, dude, she's not into you. She's into me. And he's like, did you even bring me up? I was like, no. And so I was like, so my friend Jason was furious with me for the rest of camp. Like my best friend, and he just didn't want anything to do with me. It was like, now we're on the outs. And it was a bummer because, I don't know, I didn't really know how things worked in the 6th grade. And so I didn't talk to Margaret for the rest of camp. I just thought she was my girlfriend, like done. And all right, like that worked out. That was great. So I didn't talk to Margaret. And then the second to last day of camp, my friend Jason comes up to me. He's like, I got some good news and some bad news, bro. He goes, me and Margaret are going out. and you guys aren't anymore. She said you never even talked to her. I was like, that sucks, right? So here at the end of camp, right? On one hand, I want to be a good friend to my friend Jason. On the other hand, I wanted to do what I wanted to do, right? What ended up happening, at the end of camp, I left with no friend and no girlfriend. You see, life, the man who is double-minded is unstable in all of his ways. There's going to become a time in life where you're going to have to choose, and if you try to play the middle road, it's not going to work. There is no third option when it comes to Jesus. You are either with him or you are against him. There is no third option. There's no other way. So you have to make a decision. You have to make a choice. Are you going to follow him or not? And when you don't make that choice, when you try to play the third way, when you try to play the middle, when you try not to be sold out to Jesus, you're just at the mercy of the waves. You're at the mercy of the storm. And here's the problem with that. When you're at the mercy of the ocean, when you're just in the open seas, bad things happen. You see this. Our world is full of these people. Whatever is popular is just where they go to. The wind just blows them that direction. And it just blows them all over. Gay marriage? Cool, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Gay marriage, great. You know? Abortion is a woman's right to choose? Yeah, I'm blowing that direction. Okay, cool. And meanwhile, when you have no stability in your life, you're just being blown about. Now, here's where it really becomes a problem. You know, when things are good, when the sun's shining and the sea's open, it can just kind of be really comfortable. It can be kind of nice. You just sort of a leisurely boat ride. But the problem is there's always a storm coming. There's always a storm coming, and the wind is going to kick up, and the hurricanes are going to come, and sometime, if you're not fixed, if you're just blowing around, your life is going to be ruined. As a matter of fact, the coast is full of boats that have been blown up into the rocks and have just become like skeletons, just left there abandoned because they got destroyed on the rocks. And I just want to tell you, I've seen so many lives whose their life ended like that. Their lives are just these broken down, busted up boats that have been blown onto the rocks and are just destroyed. Because that's what happens when you're just adrift in the open ocean. And some of you guys know this because some of you guys have actually been through some really tough things. Like I said, I just got back from camp. I'm talking to little kids whose parents are getting divorced, who are right in the middle of the storm. I talked to a kid who tried to commit suicide up at camp. I talked to kids that their parents are addicted to drugs, that they're living in motels. Before camp, I was sitting having lunch at Rubio's. I just got my lunch. This kid comes in, who I know from, he's in one of our junior high groups. I don't know him very good. He comes in, he's like, "Hey, Mike." He comes and sits down. I'm like, "Yeah, have a seat." He goes, "What kind of burrito is that?" I'm like, "It's a very expensive shrimp burrito." And he's like, "Looks pretty good." I was like, "Really?" I was like, "Do you like shrimp?" I didn't give him my burrito, just so you know. I'm not that cool a dude. So I was just like, "Yes, it is very good. Thank you very much. Can I help you?" And so we're just talking, and I was like, "Hey, man, you going to camp?" There's a little apostolic church right across the street, a little strip mall church, and he's like, "Yeah, he's like, "No, I'm not going to camp. I'm just waiting for the church to open because I'm going to go over there and play drums. I'm learning how to play drums, so I'm going to go to the service night." It's like 12:30 in the afternoon. He's like, "Yeah, it opens at 7, so I'm just kind of waiting a couple hours till they open up," right? This kid's just riding his bike around El Cajon, 12-year-old kid waiting for this church to open. And I was like, "You coming to camp?" He said, "No, Isaiah told me that there's no more scholarships available." And I'm thinking to myself, he must have not want you to come to camp. And so we're talking. He's like, "Yeah, my dad." I said, "What's your dad's name?" And he told me. He's like, "My dad died 5 years ago, and then our house got infested by roaches, and so now we're living in this motel that is down the street." And I was like, let me call Isaiah real quick. So I call Isaiah. I was like, "Hey, man, is there any reason?" He's like, "No, we just don't have any more money." I was like, "We'll find some more money." So I go, "Hey, man, if you want to go to camp, can you go right now?" He's like, I'll ride my bike home, and I'll be ready in 10 minutes, right? So he rides his bike home, comes up to camp, and has a good time. But here's this kid's life. As soon as he left, the guy that was sitting behind him turned around. He said, This dude is not anywhere near a Christian, okay? This guy looks like he's pretty beat up, and he's like, hey, man, that motel where that kid lives is full of crackheads and whores. And he's like, I can't believe what I just heard. He said, like, that kid has a chance because of you, man. Thank you for being there for that kid. It was like this thing that the Lord set up. But I just left with thinking, man, dude, this guy's life, this guy's in the middle of a raging storm, right? I mean, just all around him. Like, can you imagine being in that situation? Can you imagine when your parents dies and you're just riding around in El Cajon, just at the mercy of whoever you run into, and just all the bad things that can happen to you and all the hard things that are happening in your life? When you're immature and when you're double-minded, you're just at the mercy. And so is that life, though? Is that just how life works? We're just all kind of stuck, being blown around by the different storms that are going to come into our life and the different hard things and difficult things, and that's what's going to define us? No, I want you to look at Hebrews 6:19-20. This is the theme verse for this camp. It says, this hope we have as an anchor of the soul, a hope both sure and steadfast, and one which enters within the veil, where Jesus has entered as a forerunner for us, having become a high priest forever, according to the order of Melchizedek. This is a boat anchor for a small boat. I think, I thought I knew how an anchor worked until Fred was all, you ever set an anchor before? Right as I walked up here. I was like, no, Fred, but I'm about to use it as an object lesson, so don't make it too complicated for me. So basically, here's what you do. You throw the anchor in, right? It lays on the bottom of the seafloor like that, and you pull the boat taut, and it digs itself into the mud that's on the ground. You see, when your anchor is set, your boat is no longer at the mercy of the storm and the waves, because you're anchored onto something that is bigger than that, something that's stronger than that. So the Bible says that we have an anchor, not an anchor for a boat, but we have an anchor for our souls. Now listen to this next, look at this next. A hope both sure and steadfast. Okay? That is the opposite of being blown around and at the mercy of the waves. This anchor causes us, our souls, to be both sure and steadfast. You know what that means? That means unchangeable. It means stuck. It means you can have confidence in it. It means that in your life, you don't have to be at the mercy of your circumstances. In your life, you don't have to be blown around. But when you have this hope that is Jesus, it's like an anchor to your soul that no matter what else happens, no matter which way the wind blows, no matter what happens in your life, no matter who comes into your life, no matter what hard things you go through, no matter what kinds of things we as a culture go through, your life can be both sure and steadfast. And here's why. It says, both sure and steadfast, and one which enters within the veil. What's the veil? The veil is the temple, is in the temple. It's the veil that separates the Holy of Holies from just the holy place. And in the Holy of Holies was the stuff that was in the tabernacle. You have the Ten Commandments and this whole box that they built to hold the Ten Commandments, and it's the place where the presence of God, the power of God resides. That's the Holy of Holies. And the high priest would only go in there one time a year because it was that sacred of a place. It was that holy of a place. It's the place where he was literally entering into the presence of God. And he'd go in there once a year and make intercession for the people. And so the problem was they thought to themselves, what if he goes in there in some kind of unworthy manner and the Lord kills him? Just snatches the breath out of his lungs. What are we going to do? Because then we have just like this stinking high priest that is going to decompose in the Holy of Holies. So what they did is they tie a rope around his ankle and they give him a bell, and you go in there, and as he's praying, he just ring the bell every once in a while. Let him know he's still alive. Because if he dies in there, they're just going to pull him out with that rope. So when we read that this hope is sure and steadfast, which enters within the veil, what it's talking about is the power of the living God. It's saying this anchor that we have, this anchor is this hope in Jesus, who holds the power of God, it says in verse 20, where Jesus has entered as a forerunner for us, having become that high priest. And so we now have access to the power of God. We now have access in our life that it doesn't matter what is going on because that anchor gives us the power of God in our lives. 1 John 4:4 says, "You are from God, little children, and have overcome them because greater is he who is in you than he who is in the world." When God is on your side, you literally have nothing to worry about. The only thing you need to fear is him. The only thing you need to be afraid of is falling short of him. You don't need the reason you fear God is so you don't have to fear anything else. There's this illustration that I think works. It's actually fake, but if you ever hear it, they tell it like it's real. It's a transcript between a U.S. naval ship with Canadian authorities off the coast of Newfoundland in October 1995. This radio conversation was released by the Chief of Naval Operations. The American ships got this little beep on their radar. And so they called out to the radar. They said, please divert your course 15 degrees to the north to avoid a collision. Canadians came back, we recommend you divert your course 15 degrees to the south to avoid a collision, eh? It's my Canadian accent. The Americans come back and they say, no, this is the captain of a U.S. Navy ship. I say again, divert your course. The Canadian comes back and he's like, hey, no, I say again, you divert your course. The American comes back on. He says, this is the aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln, the second largest ship in the United States Atlantic Fleet. We are accompanied by 3 destroyers, 3 cruisers, and numerous support vessels. I demand that you change your course 15 degrees north. That's 15 degrees north, or countermeasures will be undertaken to ensure the safety of this ship. Canadian comes back and says, this is a lighthouse. It's your call. You see, this illustration works in this way, that there's a lot of big, scary ships out there, but it doesn't matter how big the aircraft carrier, it doesn't matter how many destroyers are in their battle group, it doesn't matter any of that stuff, because if they run aground, they're going to get jacked up, right? If they run into the rocks, if they run into the land, they're going to get jacked up. And this is like the power of God. It doesn't matter what's coming against you. It doesn't matter how strong what is against you is coming at you. When you have the power of God in your life, when you are anchored, when your soul has an anchor in him, both sure and steadfast, you can be confident that it doesn't matter what's coming against you. It doesn't matter what storms life throws at you. You can be confident that your anchor is firm. Now, there's one other thing that you need for an anchor to work. You throw this anchor in, and there's only one other thing you really need for it to hold fast. And that's that this end of the rope needs to be connected to your boat. Have you guys ever seen that, where it's just like they throw the anchor in and then it's just gone? I was watching I was going to use a video illustration of this, and I saw this huge tanker ship where they're letting out this anchor, and they have this chain that is like literally like this thick, and they're letting it out, and it's, they're in deep ocean, and so it's just dropping really far and really fast. And the guys who were letting it out didn't know what they were doing, and so they opened they let the brake open like too far, and this chain just being let out like this, and it's like, and the chain just went into the ocean. And now you have like this anchor and chain that's worth thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars just sitting on the bottom of the ocean because these idiots didn't stop it in time, right? The anchor will do you no good if the other end of it's not attached to your boat. You can have an anchor on boat. You can know how the anchor works. But if it's not attached to your ship, it's not going to do you any good. So how do we tie our boat? How do we tie our lives to the anchor that's Jesus? And the question is really this: how can you be saved? How can you have confidence that your life is like I was talking about in Hebrews? How can you be confident that your life is anchored by Jesus? And here's how. The answer is you need to be saved. Look at Romans chapter 10, verse 9 through 13. I want to invite the band up here. Romans 10, 9 through 13, it says this, that if you confess with your mouth Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. For with the heart a person believes, resulting in righteousness, and with the mouth he confesses, resulting in salvation. For the scripture says, whoever believes in him will not be disappointed. For there is no distinction between Jew and Greek, for the same Lord is Lord of all, abounding in riches for all who call on him. For whoever will call on the name of the Lord will be saved. Look at this. This is what you need to know, and this is who I'm trying to talk to tonight. Some of you guys in here have been in church a long time. Some of you guys, man, this is maybe the first camp you've ever been to. Maybe this is the first church event you've ever been to. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you've been in church your whole life, that all your great-great-great-great-grandparents and everybody since has been Christian. It doesn't matter if you come from the most jacked up background, the most messed up family. It doesn't matter what you've done. It doesn't matter if you've been really, 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 really good your whole life or if you have been everything except good in your life. It doesn't matter if you're black or white or Hispanic or Asian. Or Middle Eastern, for my Middle Eastern brothers. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor. It doesn't matter if you're fat or skinny. It doesn't matter if you're popular or you're a nerd. It doesn't matter. Look what it says. In verse 12, it says, for there is no distinction between Jew and Greek. It doesn't matter if you're a religious person or you're an unreligious person. This is the gospel and it's available for everybody. Here's what you need to do to make sure that you are not adrift in life, that you are not just at the mercy of the waves and the wind. That you're not at the mercy of every storm that comes by is not maybe going to throw you up against the rocks and destroy you. You confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord, and you believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead. If that faith is in you, to believe that Jesus Christ was the Son of God and that God raised him from the dead, and then you confess, you act on that, you make that the confession of your life, which is more than just saying Jesus is Lord. It's living like Jesus is Lord. When you do that in your life, look what it says in verse 13. It says, whoever will call on the name of the Lord will be saved. And then in verse 11, right there in the middle, it gives us this promise. It promises you that you'll never be disappointed. Listen, no one who ties their boat, who ties their life to the anchor that is Jesus Christ, will ever be sad that he or she did it. They'll never be disappointed. There is nothing else in life that can make that promise for you. Nothing. Jesus is the only person who can promise that, because he's the only thing in this world that is both sure and steadfast. It's the only thing in this world that is stronger than any storm that can come. He's the only thing in the world that his power can overcome anything that's going to come into your life. And that confidence can be yours tonight. That hope can be yours tonight. But you got to make sure the other end of that rope is attached to your boat. Bow your heads. Lord, I want to thank you, Jesus, for your word. God, I want to thank you, Lord, that you really are both sure and steadfast, God. You are the hope, Lord, that has gone before us and entered into the veil, God, to make intercession for us. Lord, that we might be saved. That every person in here, that you can guarantee when you call on the name of the Lord, you will be saved. You offer us, Lord, something that nothing else can offer us. That we can trust in you with our lives. And that we'll never be sorry that we did. That we'll never be disappointed. So here's what I want to do tonight. We're going to worship in a minute, but I just want to say, if there's anybody here that you know that God is speaking to you right now, and he's saying, you need to tie your life to me. you need to make this official. Maybe you've been playing games with him. Maybe you've been kind of back and forth, up and down, and he's saying, look, tonight, I'm speaking to your heart. I'm saying, you need to tie your life to me. That doesn't happen by just saying a prayer one night at camp. But that decision can happen tonight. And so look, I'm not talking to everybody in here. I'm just talking to the people the Lord is speaking to right now, the people the Holy Spirit is speaking to your heart. Say, I want you to trust me with your life. I want you to surrender your life to me, no matter what it is. If that's you, I just want you to stand up right now and come forward. Just come forward and stand up here, and adults are going to pray for you. So if that's you, don't wait. I'm not talking to your friend. I'm not talking to anybody else. Just on your own, if the Lord's speaking to you, I want you to come forward. I want to invite the adults to come forward.